Hey friends, welcome back to Confidence and Coffee, where we keep it real, raw, and a little bit caffeinated. I'm your host, Ashley Henriott, speaker, author, and your go-to hype girl for when life feels like a lot. Around here, we talk about things that keep you up at night. Self-doubt, fear, people-pleasing, faith, and finding your voice again, without the fluff. So grab your coffee, pull up a seat, and let's talk about stuff that actually matters.
Hey, welcome. I want to do a song for you, but I'll save that to the artists that we're going to have here today, you guys. We have some pretty amazing guests. We are in the presence of true artistry. And I'm talking about artistry in action and movies, in art, even in song. We have with us today Delitha and Nathan Myers. And to say they're just artists is probably an understatement. Again, you guys know I'm allowed to brag on my guest, and so I will. They're Christian parents. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, hold on. What do you mean? Because we hear that so much and so often, and they're all about on a mission to influence our children in a God way, to take back things and give God glory and teach our children the right things and protect them the way the Lord would call us to. Nathan was the lead designer of that studios, Capernaum Studios. We all know this. And gardens featured in seasons, hear me out, 1 and 3 of the global hit The Chosen. And Delitha is a trained musical theater performer and actress, okay? And they've created bold, God-honoring films, kid films specifically, what we're going to talk about today, that combats today's culture of confusion. And I think we can say that a lot of people are confused. And that's not who God is. And rebellion. And so there's so much more that we could say, but I'm really excited and I'm so honored to have you guys here to take the time to talk to me about your new children's series, Aria Appleton Shines. Can you explain to me a little bit about about the mission of what brought that on, and a little bit more about your background? It's very interesting. We talked a little bit about that before we started, but Delitha, I think what's really cool is you're a homeschool mom. And so you're really passionate about this. I have so much respect for you. I've always wanted to homeschool my kids. And so one season I will. But talk to me about really what brought that on. Was that a part of it?
So, what's interesting about all of that is how God was weaving this amazing tapestry from the beginning. I started out doing musical theater at a children's theater, and one of my cohorts, her name was Sarah Slaughter Hughes. And we were the two girls, and there were two guys that we were all residents for that year. And so we got to do all 7 shows in the season. And she was a wild, crazy woman who, had amazing personality. Everyone loved her, but she did not know the Lord. She did not know the Lord. She wasn't raised in that sort of family. And I just thought, she is such a cool person. If she could get familiar with the Bible and learn about God and have some sort of life transformation, she could do amazing things for the kingdom. And so, fast forward about 15 years later, we are visiting a church and we're singing a worship song, and I hear this gorgeous alto voice, and I look to my right and I'm standing next to her. I haven't seen her in probably 11 or 12 years, and she's in church, but I've been praying for her all this time. And she was there, and she looked
Wow.
at me and we reconnected. And in that moment, until for the last couple months, I'd been writing Aria Appleton Shines, this movie, and I had her in mind for one of the main roles, even though I hadn't seen her in forever. But she was always on my mind, always on my heart. And there she is in church that we just happened to visit. And so we reconnected that day, and she met a guy who helped introduce her to all the wonderful things. And she became this amazing Christian woman. She had 2 children, and one of those kids is in our film too, Selah. She was homeschooling her daughter, and as I got to meet her daughter on set more and learn about this gorgeous family, I was like, "What are you doing with this girl? Because she is so smart. She is so good with speaking to human beings and just so
Yeah.
on." And she said, "Oh, well, we homeschool." And at that time, my daughter was not in school yet, and I said, "Tell me everything you're doing, and that's what I'm going to do with my daughter." And so that's what I've done.
Yeah, and that was the beginning of a big conversation around the movie itself, which at the time was just something we were writing for fun, and we had felt called to make something and keep Jesus in mind while we were writing it. It just happened to be something that kids and families would enjoy. It happened to be in that genre. It also, I think, is a byproduct of reconnecting with Sarah, and the homeschool theme and some of that had started to weave itself into the storyline. And so it really did affect kind of where we ultimately ended up.
Man, it makes me want to go right to behind the scenes almost of this movie because it sounds like it was definitely intentional. It was intentional. And so I'm curious, with intention can come spiritual warfare, and you and I can all connect in a real way that the world is definitely under that, especially in the filmmaking industry, which I know not much about. Okay. That's why you're here. But behind the scenes of filmmaking and like the role of telling this story, did you experience spiritual warfare and any like the fact that this was a win during this movie? All the things. Tell us. I always like to get to the deep.
Yeah, I think the warfare portion of it, at least the heat of that battle, really came a little bit later in the production process for us, because at the top of all of this, I was feeling very cornered by the Lord and got a very clear call to sell my house, sell a vehicle, which was much to Delitha's chagrin at the time. Of course, we had how old was Aurora? She was one. We had a 1-year-old baby, and I'm like, I got to sell the house, and none of that was anything we counted on at that time. But when the Lord corners you, He's working, He's doing something, and so we sell the house, and we were going to closing in May of that year, and a friend of mine called me who works in the film space. He said, "Hey, I want you to produce and direct a couple of features that I have. They're faith-based." And I said, "Hey man, I don't know what's going on, but I think I'm getting out of the movie industry. I think I'm probably exiting. I don't know where I'm going. I've prayed that the Lord won't put me in a pulpit, because that's where my dad was for 40 years. But I don't know what's happening, but something's up." And we just sold the house. We're going to Florida for a while to go hang out with my parents to just figure it out. And he said, and it was funny, he said, "I don't believe you. I will see you in July." And in truth, we rebounded back to Texas from Florida after a period of prayer and just like seeking God, what's next? What are we supposed to be doing? And ended up back in Texas. I was at his desk in July looking at some faith-based scripts for potential production. But on the other side of a conversation with him, after several weeks, we really couldn't come to terms on what might be next and what project we might be working on. The project he wanted to do, I was sure was not something I wanted to do. And so I get off the phone with him one night, and she's like, "Well, where are we?" And I was like, "They don't have a script." I said, this is not, I don't think this is really going anywhere. I'm not sure why we're in this long conversation with this guy. He's a dear friend and I appreciate him, but it's not, it was just felt like a dead end, and
Yeah.
she flips open her laptop and starts sitting down and writing. And I've noted that she's at her laptop. And then an hour later, she's still at her laptop, which was a little unusual. 3 hours later, she's still at her laptop. And I'm like, "What are you working on?" And she was like, "I think I'm writing a screenplay." And she really just got a download that night as we were, because people are like, "Well, did you pray about it?" I was like, all we were doing was praying about it. All we'd been doing for months was praying about what was next and what God wanted from us. And then suddenly it was as if everything lined up, and that was the thing. It was work together. And it's interesting because we had both independent creative lives at that point. She was working in live theater for the most part. I had done a bit of that. We had met doing live theater, but I was off in the film space and design space, and I was kind of on a slightly different path, but we weren't working together. And that project was really about God bringing us together in a creative activity that we'd not done before, where we were joining forces creatively to take what we're both good at and put it all together. And that is really kind of where it came from. But we had just sold a house and we didn't make a lot of money off the sale of the house.
But it allowed us to become debt free.
It did. It set us free from major debt.
Yeah.
It put us in, and ironically, I tell people we became homeless virtually because we sold that house. We moved in with my in-laws, much to my chagrin and hers. She didn't want to be there. Definitely didn't want to be there. And those of you who've lived with the in-laws before, you know what I'm talking about. And you have to swallow so much pride to go do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we end up with the in-laws, and that will make you pray. If you've not lived with your in-laws, it will make you pray. It will. I'm sorry, Ashley. She's over there.
No, it's true. I love it. It's true.
But
I feel this with my soul. That's the only reason I'm laughing.
so we end up in this quandary of a sort, trying to figure out what to do. But as soon as we clicked, which was join forces, do something creatively together besides make babies, and you know, and then and so that is where we ended up, and that is and Aria Appleton Shines, the screenplay, was this thing that she didn't really know was in her, but she's a problem solver. And so she's got a master's in drama and a musical theater degree, and she's studied abroad and been in a billion shows. If there's anybody that could just reach into their back pocket and go, oh, you need a screenplay?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a second. Yeah, here you go. She just throws one out there for you. And she did, but you know, and in defense of the broader creative process, she would admit she'd never written a screenplay before like that. So it went through a couple of iterations. It came to me. I rewrote it I kind of completed some things and then rewrote it with a friend, Jason Davidson, who's one of our producers. He's also in the film. And Jason's a very funny guy. And we rewrote it for comedic beats and just kind of making sure the jokes all held water and things like that. And then in post-production, a year later, it got rewritten again to some degree, enough so by our editor, Molly Reeder, who added several things that we gave Molly a writer's credit because we felt like she deserved a writer's credit on the project at that point. And so it was a group effort, but I really do think what God was trying to do in us was to get us to work together and to have this realization, like, you guys are both super talented people. If you would just join forces, who knows what the potential is of a partnership like that. So I think that's kind of how it started, was that realization. But what God was doing is beyond that, was breaking off a lot of rough edges and teaching us how to do some things. And I've told people, regardless of whatever the movie ever does or doesn't do, what I've learned through the process of making it has been absolutely invaluable. And because when we sat back, homeless, living with the in-laws, looking at each other going, what are we going to do this with? We didn't have very much we could personally invest in a project like this. We had about $2,500 that we had set aside that we felt like we could let go of if we were going to, put into a movie. And most people are like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, it's interesting. It's 2,500 and that's 5 and 2. That's 5 loaves, 2 fish that we put forward. Right. And we laid that out there, and that was what we had. And it was funny because when I was like, well, what are we supposed to do this with? Make a movie, keep you in mind. This doesn't make any sense. Now we're homeless. Now, I'm griping and fussing and I'm upset and angry about the prompt. I should have been grateful, but I wasn't, because honestly, I didn't want to be in a pulpit. I didn't want to do what my dad did for 40 years, like I said, but I should have been grateful. I wasn't. I had a bad attitude about it. And I was like, what are we supposed to make this with? With what?
Come on.
And it was very clear, very clear. You have 5 loaves, 2 fish, go pass it out. You know what to do. And you of all people should know. You just don't get it. You know these stories, you know these parables, you know some of these teachings that I gave the world, but you don't live them, and you don't live it out. And so we began to live out a 5 loaf, 2 fish manifestation story, and the resources that came in to make that film blew our minds as we stepped in faith and as we moved forward. And so what I've learned in the process of doing that has been absolutely invaluable. And I feel like I was just being held accountable to the inheritance that I've been given in the saints from my family through. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was being held accountable to it. Like, look, this stuff, put it into practice. And we did. Aria is a byproduct of that process for us. It is our first, it's our firstborn movie. It's our firstborn child. Well, yeah.
That's what love you guys. I love the marriage piece. I love the relationship piece of like you guys both were in this industry, and God was leading you to do so many projects and you guys have rewards, like you have such great accomplishments. But the fact that it's like the two of you together, I mean, that is just God does things on purpose, and the power of that, like just the power of being able to work on something and the inspiration with your children, right? Like everything has a purpose. Like for instance, like I will watch something knowing it has intention and purpose, not just entertainment. And that's what you guys did with entertainment. You created an intention and purpose, but for the good of God's glory. And we live in a cultural society that people are making things with the intentions of evil, right? To influence in an evil and a negative way. And what's scary is that I found in this industry, like as a mother of 4 kids, that God uses anybody, but the enemy also, and he'll use the ones that are completely blind and ignorant to truth and to Jesus, and he will use them to harm the innocent, right? To harm the weak. And you guys are visual people. I don't know why this just came to me because that's not what I was going to ask, but what just visually came to me is that, the Bible says the devil roars like, he prowls like a lion ready to devour whom he can. And I am a weirdo, okay? And I love to watch. I don't watch just like these intellectual things on social media. I like to watch animals eat other animals.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I love to watch like the Animal Planet, like just like the nature of animals and like how they hunt and how they survive and how they connect with one another. I don't know. I'm interested in it. It's very interesting. But what's funny is something I learned. I really genuinely don't know why this is coming up, but I feel led to say it because it visually came to me. So maybe you guys will. Is that lions, when they hunt, they're looking for the weak. Man, I just got goosebumps. They're looking for the weak and the young. They're looking for the most vulnerable, the ones that can't defend themselves, the ones that are just coming into the world that know no harm of the world. They know no evil. They're protected and they only know their mothers and their fathers. And that's what the lions go after. It isn't the mother. It isn't the father, the king, right? It is their children as soon as they are born. And you guys, this is on purpose. And I don't think it's just for children. I think it's for family. It's for legacy. It's to protect the next generation and take back. And you guys talk about that. You talk about creating pro-God, not just clean. Come on, somebody. Not just anti-bad content. There is a difference, right? And you say something, and I would love for you to touch on it a little bit more, is why entertainment is disciplining our kids. That took me back a little bit because I'm like, that's the last thing you hear almost, right? And how do you reclaim entertainment for good?
Yeah, there's several stats out there. One is that what is being produced for all things, even social media, but also what we're watching on Netflix or Disney or whatever it is, 265% of it is made for adults.
Wow.
And then out of what is being produced, supposedly only 15% of it is geared towards kids or families. I watched many a thing with my daughter early on before I realized what was happening with entertainment, where, would be like watching it and it seems good. And then we get to episode 6 and they slip it in. They slip in that worldly agenda and that doctrine that I am not okay with. And it happens. It happened over and over and over again. And so within that 15%, there's not much that's actually like that I would consider is actually family appropriate or child appropriate. And then far less than that would ever be deemed as being pro-God, right? I mean, the things that are out there are mostly like Bible films that my daughter, she doesn't want to watch those. She
Or
doesn't wanna watch the Bible
VeggieTales.
films. Or VeggieTales. She was also not into VeggieTales. I wanted her to be, but she wasn't. And so it's very little out there that is
Yeah.
available for kids, especially like tweens, right? Like I don't even know if there is a stat out there for that.
It's probably negative
Yeah.
numbers for tweens, but I mean, think about, if you open up any streamer these days or turn on any channel that's got programming for kids, there seems to be a plethora of things available for kids, but that's the 15%. And that 15%, like if you search down through any of the major streamers looking for something that's Christ-centered or pro God, just pro
There's
God,
not.
there's
It's
not
not.
much. It's a fraction of a fraction. And so we have a heart to try to fill that gap, but not to fill it with what's going on, right? I greatly respect the fact that King of Kings and David and some of these things that have just come out that are animated for kids are really well made and they're really cool, but they are still Middle Eastern characters in Middle Eastern garb in a Middle Eastern story that is not relevant culturally to kids today. They look at that and they go, I don't know, why are these people wearing towels? The concept of the story is good and the heart of the matter is good, and you can translate that. And that is a parent's responsibility to look at an old story and help pull that forward for their kids and go, well, we know this story's ancient, and here's what it means. And that's what Aria Appleton represents. It represents parabolic, allegorical teaching, right? But it's in a modern style. It looks like Diary of a Wimpy Kid or Mean Girls, or it's done in a way that kids today are gonna get it. And they do. When kids watch this movie, they come back and they're like, they think it's hysterical. And they also get the message. Ironically, parents don't always get it. And they come back, they're like, well, I don't know, this seems a little edgy, for whatever. And I always come back to Madeleine L'Engle, the writer who wrote A Wrinkle in Time. She said, if adults won't get it, write it for children.
Who will?
Because kids will get it. And I think that's because Jesus understood this principle too. Unless you become like a little child, you won't inherit the kingdom. And so that we're trying to function in that space where, we create things that are relevant, they're connectable, they're modern, they're relatable, and they also tell stories that are true. They don't tell cotton candy popcorn stories. They're stories that are true. The reason that King of Kings works, it's a true story. It's the story of Jesus. David works right now because it's a true story. It's the story of King David. It's true, but it could easily be told as an allegory. That's what Narnia is, right? It could be told as an allegory. It could be told in any way. And the story is still true. And so true versus false, and what is true and what is false is maybe a conversation for another podcast. But that's where our heart is writing things that are true.
Yeah, that's good. And I love that you talk about relevancy. And this is going to sound silly, but you guys get it. But when I saw is it Aria? Because I keep calling it Aria. I have a friend, Madeline, her daughter's name's Aria. Am I right? Is it? Yes. I was talking about the movie. Is it Aria?
Aria.
Uh-huh.
Aria.
Aria
Okay.
Appleton
My friend has a daughter named Aria. And so you guys, this is random is what I was saying. And then I'll get back into relevancy and you'll guys get it. But when I saw it, it reminded me of that Miley Cyrus show.
Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana.
Yeah.
It reminded me of Hannah Montana. Yeah. Yeah. But like that style and the energy of it. And so I just wanted to say that was just random. So
yeah,
but anyways,
but people have said like there's the Hillary Duff one that was before that.
Lizzie McGuire. It's
kind of that style too,
with.
With the like in her head sort of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved Lizzie McGuire. Those were my things. Millennial,
Yeah.
But anyways, with relevancy and you guys really making the bold move to do that, because it's true. Like I was talking to an artist. He creates toys. He actually helped with the creation of the toy of the Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah. And he's like big in there. He lives in LA and he loves Jesus. And now he's creating toys based off characters in the Bible, but they don't look like the characters. They're like these really amazing. I mean, this man even made his own Labubu, but it's like they look like kind of like robots. Like they're their own figures, but they represent like Narnia. They represent the figures and the truth in the Bible, but they're very relevant, very cultural, and I asked for some toys. And so I've never seen anything like it. And I feel like God is using people like you that are like, no, I'm coming back. Do you guys not hear me? We're coming back, and we're coming back strong. And you guys answered the call, and you're going after culture, right? You're not keeping it safe. And so, I mean, on the rise of technology addiction, phone addiction, internet addiction, entitlement, let's be so for real, and rebellion is on a rise. Mental illness is on a rise with young children. How can parents push back on that? How can we restore our parental authority and influence in this kind of culture that erases it almost?
I think parents have to draw some very clear lines for themselves first. That is first and foremost. Parents who are sitting around doom scrolling all day long without purpose, who think that that's not affecting their kids, are deluded. And, there's a movement right now where parents are installing landlines in their houses so that groups of kids can communicate amongst their friend group and without a smartphone. And I'm like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Because I did this a couple of years ago. I was having trouble focusing sitting at the computer because there's so many, you can turn off all your notifications and you can try to sit there to focus. And I love to write. So I just want to write. I don't want to be distracted by Facebook and Instagram and notifications and email. I just don't want to think about that while I'm trying to write. And so I got myself a device called a Free Write, which is a digital writer. It's just a little typewriter basically. And that was how I was able to cut out 1,000 distractions at a computer that could take a very creative brain and cause it to chase squirrels. And so I was able to focus a little bit better. Parents need to do that for themselves on behalf of their kids. They need to be doing what is best for the kids by looking at their own lives and going, what in my own life do I need to let go of or change that will be in the best interest of creating an environment that's ideal for my kids? And that, in some cases for people, is a job change. They may need to change their job. They may need to homeschool. They may need to stop homeschooling. And so there are some parents who probably are failing at homeschooling, but just a few. And they might ought to your kids back into an institutional setting. But first and foremost, parents need to check themselves before they wreck their family. And
check yourself before you wreck yourself.
That's right. So that is step one, in my opinion, is parents doing the right thing. And that means when your 3-year-old or your 12-year-old or your 18-year-old, it doesn't matter, comes up to you and says, hey, Dad, can we play right now? That if you're home and that you just drop what you're doing for that 3 minutes that it will take to appease a 3-year-old.
Come on.
Or the 10 minutes it'll take to appease a 12-year-old, or the hour it might take to appease an 18-year-old. I don't know. Those are probably not accurate numbers, but
I have a 16-year-old and I'm like, and they want to talk like at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, I asked you how your day was when you were done with practice. We had an hour in the car and you were on your phone. And now you're like, got to tell me about all your problems. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it's true. Those are precious missed moments for parents that don't take advantage of it. And many of them will justify it and say, well, I'm busy, I'm tired, I'm whatever. And I'm like, well, why don't you trust that God wants you to lead and bless your family and to do what's in their best interest? That is a man's first responsibility, is to try to do the right thing for his family. And so if that is true and your job or your daily schedule or whatever is interfering with that, which of those items do you think God is going to ultimately bless in the long run? Is he going to bless you staying in this soul-sucking, soul-killing job situation that's also affecting your family? Or is he going to bless you if you step back and go, you know what? I probably ought to make some major changes that are going to help benefit the family. Maybe you need to move out on a homestead and just farm together. Maybe you need to just move to a new town and get out of the gunk and the funk of where you've been for a few years. Whatever that big change is, I think people at the very least need to consider that and then challenge themselves to trust that God has that as his priority ultimately as well. And if you will make that your priority, he will put water under your boat You know what I mean? He'll be like, yes, go that direction. That is the 5 loaves and 2 fish lesson that I was learning in the process of making our movie, was just when you're going the right direction, you're doing the right thing, God will bless you. When you asked me about spiritual warfare earlier in that regard, and I'm like, well, that kind of came later, and it does come with the territory, but it's not the end all be all of doing the right thing. The end all be all of doing the right thing is walking in the grace and the mercy and the love and the blessing and the abundant life Jesus promised you when you go that way. Are you going to get knocked in the chin from time to time? Is somebody going to, are you going to get a fiery arrow thrown at you from time to time? Yes, but you'll deal with that as it comes. But doing the right thing for your family, I think, is tough. That is, you have to make some sacrifices, and the sacrifice aspect, I think, is huge. Litha has some thoughts on that subject too, I know.
I was
Well,
going to ask
I
you because
do.
you're the homeschool mom.
Yeah, I am. So we have a 12-year-old daughter, but we also have a son who just turned 4 this week. And he is a whole different ball game than my daughter ever was. And I am also, a decade older with him than I was with her. And I just don't want to play, period, ever. I don't ever want to play. But I make myself, and I really it's a daily talk with myself when he says, will you please play Paw Patrol? And I know that I don't play Paw Patrol right. He always gets mad at me when I play with him.
But
So I don't know. Why does he want to play with me? I don't get it, but he does. And so I have that daily talk, like, just do it, and so I do. I just get down on the floor and we play, and I get in trouble for doing it wrong. But it really does. He takes about 3 to 5 minutes, and then he's like, okay, next thing, because his brain is this big. And I have to do that about 2 or 3 times a day. But if you think about the time commitment of that, like, that's about 12 minutes of my whole day. For some reason, it feels like eternity when I'm doing it. But, if you just check yourself and go, yes, I can play with you right now. Even though it feels like he will never get past, it felt like he would never get past 3, and now we're in 4, and it feels like he will never get past 4. He will. And one day he will be, 20, and I will be like, ugh. And so I have to remind myself that it's the long road. Now, we make sacrifices. I made sacrifices when I was pregnant with these children, such sacrifices. And from dieting to just overall health to bladder to all the things. And so now that they're out of my body, I still have to make the sacrifices.
Right.
It is not done. And so that is kind of my daily mantra, is like, keep sacrificing.
Yeah, we're creating the next generation. And God is God of order. Like, God is a God of order. And there is an order. God, our spouses, our children. And if those things are not in order and there's other things coming, like, we talk about sacrifice. That's a great point. And I had to deconstruct or go on a faith journey from a prosperity gospel church. And my husband and I got a job there. And I remember the wife coming up to me, the wife pastor, and she grabbing my arms like this. And she's like, you're going to have to make sacrifices. But it didn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
There was something inside of me that was like, this doesn't seem right. And I just kind of sat on it, but I honored her in that moment. And my marriage was falling apart. Like, me moved out, falling apart when we started working at this church. And it was my dream to work at this church. Like, this was our goal. Like, they saw themselves in us, right? Like, I was gonna raise my kids up in the church, and I did, thank you, Jesus, but things were out of order. We were trying to please the people, and we were sacrificing for leaders that was coming over the time that we needed to invest in our marriage. And so we had to make an even bigger sacrifice, and we had to let those jobs go to save our marriage. And God gave us that time to work on things that we needed to work on to come back stronger and unite, to go out into the world that can't separate us, right? There is healthy sacrifices, and then there are really unhealthy, selfish, ambitious sacrifices. And if we don't know the difference, and you guys know this in the industry, if we don't know the difference, that kingdom, whatever that platform is, whatever that build is, it's going to fall at some point. Someone's going to pay. But when you go God's way, like the loaf and the fish, it's going to produce. Nobody's going to pay. They're going to be able to be purposed. You're able going to be present, and everyone is going to be pleased. God is a God of promises and purpose. And so I think that's another thing as parents we need to check with ourselves is like, you know what? I'm not going to justify my own selfish ambition and say, well, I'm providing for my family.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm like the homeschool thing. I'm going to say it. Like, I want to homeschool my kids. I know I'm in a season that God is teaching me how to do that because I did it too early. And I, call social services because I'm about to, and I was a teacher so bad, but God has taught me like, okay, I have to reprogram how I teach and we're getting there.
Mhm.
But I definitely feel like it's true. We need to set the example. We need to discipline ourselves in order to truly discipline our children in a way that'll direct them back to the Lord. And you guys are doing that in a way with like, so you're telling me I can put my kids in front of the TV and there are movies out there that they can watch? What? That's so and I don't have to worry that they put like some political or woke or whatever lie into this, they snook it, right? And you mean I don't have to compromise or justify what they did there or explain it to my children a million times? I've heard some of your interviews. I've heard where you talked about the mother-daughter relationship. I have 3 boys and our youngest is a girl.
I understand. I have 12 to just now 4.
Yes. And she's the boss. She's a diva, big personality.
Yeah.
But there is something special. There's something special there. And also my humble past, I want to never, ever have her have to build the way I had to build my confidence or my worth or struggle. Thank you, Jesus. But God gave me the opportunity to be her mother to prevent that from happening. And I want that relationship to be as strong as ever to me, mom to mom, woman to woman,
Yes.
about the benefits of that and then take me into this movie and what it's about.
Yeah. So I love my daughter and she loves me. We have a great relationship and it's because of conversation. I'm not afraid. Sometimes I am afraid, but I make myself do it anyway. To just have those tough conversations. And so if something shows up on the TV that I'm not ready to have this conversation at age 7, thank you,
I
Hollywood,
know.
I will. I will have the conversation. And when this is crazy. So in homeschool world, we were a part of a tutorial or co-op, I don't know what we call it, where, the mom has to stay with the kid and some other moms teaching the class. And then it's just so they can have some socialization. But this particular history class that they were doing this curriculum, they kept talking about how so and so is known as it being a great leader. But when his early days, he had several children from several different wives. I think it's amazing that God could take him from that to this. And it happened like 3 or 4 times in different lessons. And I was like, I have some issues with this because I think she was 9 and she really thought that, in order to have a baby, you had to have a husband and be married. And it was utopia. And this homeschool group is teaching this from this curriculum. And suddenly she's like, wait, but they're not married. How can that be? Okay, we get to have this conversation. Thanks so much, homeschool group. And so I got to have that conversation at 9, which I wasn't ready for, but I let her know all the things in a way that I did it. I don't know. I hope she is appreciative that I am just so blunt and honest. She'll have some good stories to tell her friends later in life. But I do. I just have the conversations because I want her to hear them from me. I don't want her to go to a friend and say, what is this? Or why did my mom act so weird when this happened? I want her to know what I think, what we think as a family, what the
Yeah.
Bible says about it, and just to understand our worldview about these subjects because I didn't really have that growing up. I never had conversations with my mom. I learned about everything from friends and usually much later than they learned. I feel like, wait, what? I didn't know that. You know, I just didn't know. And my daughter Aurora knows a lot now. And it's great because when they're younger and you just have these little quick conversations and it's just fact, they go, weird. Okay. And they move on. And it's not like, oh, my mom was so weird. And so we have these conversations and she talks to me about her friends and things that they're struggling with and what their mom said to them. And can you believe that their mom said that? And I'm like, no, I can't. What do you think they should have said? And we just have all these conversations. And if you've ever watched the Gilmore Girls, like Lorelai and Rory, they've got this great conversation stuff that happens with them. And that's, I don't know that we should be like, "Oh, I want the Gilmore Girls relationship," but that's what I have wanted. And so we have that. We just talk and talk and talk. And if it's 10 o'clock at night and that's when she wants to have the conversation, that's when we'll have the conversation. And so that is my model for how do you have a good relationship with your daughter. It's you talk to them, and let them talk to you. Do a
Yeah.
lot of listening, and then try not to do any judging, right?
Yeah.
Because the face, I'm always like, have the neutral face, neutral
The
face.
neutral face.
Okay, and how did that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Try not to put expectations or, shock into the conversation.
Right. Just listen. Be
Just
a safe
listen.
place. Let
That's
them
right.
talk. And that's what I do with the 16-year-old
Yeah.
boy who just has all his revelations.
At 10 p.m.
I'll be like sitting in my bed and there's a chair right next to my bed and
Yeah.
I call it the therapy chair. And so when my kids come in, I'm like, okay, come to the therapy chair, talk to me,
Yeah.
and I just listen to them. And I validate them within the conversation that I'm listening,
Yeah.
but I only talk when they ask me a question. And I ask, like, do you want my perspective? And they'll be like, yeah. And then I have that influence into their life, but I never want them to stop talking to me ever.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I think that's key for parenting girls or parenting boys. It's just be there and be present. Don't go, yeah, talk to me, and then you're on your phone. That's not good.
Yeah.
You want to show them the example. So get off that phone,
I'm
look them in
glad
the
they want to
eyes.
talk to me. I mean, I think parents should be like, hey, like, if your kids still want to talk to you, you're blessed. Don't
Mhm.
mess it up.
Yeah,
Don't, because I just stopped trying. And well, I talked to other people and that wasn't very good.
me too.
So, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the judgment factor. That's a huge one, right? When they make it feel awkward and uncomfortable, and they're afraid of the truth. They're afraid of sharing the truth as the truth. And I think that's one of the comfort zone things you have to just, what she's talking about is you just tell them the truth. And awkward is biological truth. Here it is. Here's the biology. Here's
Here's
the
the biology.
here's the spiritual truth. Here's whatever. And
Yeah.
I think that parents have to look in at themselves and ask themselves, why do I feel so personally awkward about this subject or
Yes.
this thing with my kid? Because that's not them, that's you.
Yes.
And you need to deal with yourself and find out why you
Amen.
feel so awkward about that.
Mhm.
Amen.
And in the movie, our main girl, Aria Appleton, she does not have a great relationship with her mom. Her mom is a single mom and she's all about self and growing her own business. And she's often on her phone or on the computer and she's not there. And so then Aria, her mom goes on a business vacation and she has to stay with her neighbors. And her neighbors are a Christian homeschool family. So it's a totally different experience for Aria. She's fish out of water in this new environment. And we just see, how does this family influence a girl who doesn't know Jesus? How does this family influence her about being there for her and listening and all of this stuff? And of course, the mom has, some moments while she's away of realizing, oh, Aria wanted to talk to me about that and I wasn't there. And how can I be a better mom? And so by the end, of course, things come together, things are happy. We've learned things, but it explores that mom-daughter relationship and how it can be improved upon.
Mm. And there's some comedy in there, right? Talk to me about it, Nathan. Talk to me about the comedy.
Well, the comedy is, I mean, the movie is a satire. So if you watch the movie expecting it to be incredibly grounded,
Come on.
you will be disappointed because it's written for kids, right? It's
Yeah.
written to target an audience, to keep their attention. It's very generally fast paced, though kids TV and movies is paced purposefully.
Yes.
And so if you watch it as an adult, you're going, well, this feels a little slow to me, or this feels whatever. It's because it's not written for you. It's written for them.
Okay.
And it's timed out for them. So it put it in front of kids that are 7 to 17, and they're going to just be sucked in and they're going to watch it.
Can't
You put
wait.
it in front of college students. I put it in front of a group of kids from Liberty University a couple of years ago, right as we were about to release it. They were all working on a movie with me. And they were like, we want to see your movie. And so we hosted a home screening of the movie, and they're all 20s. And they thought it was like putting Napoleon Dynamite in front of a group of 20-something kids for the very first time, because they thought it was hilarious. And so it's hilarious at the expense of no one is safe. Everyone gets thrown under the bus. The homeschoolers get thrown under the bus. The public school gets thrown under the bus. No one is really safe. And so there's a lot of humor at the expense of people. And it's not mean-spirited. It is just true. And it's true about what public school feels like. It's true about what homeschool can feel like. It's true about what life is like for a girl who's 10, who has a difficult relationship with a distant mom and no dad in the picture. So, because we don't ever see Aria's dad in this picture. So we make assumptions. So there's a lot of humor at the expense of the gritty reality of the way life can be for everybody. And it's shot a bit like if you were into Scrubs or Arrested Development or anything that's high satire like that, that's got lots of funny cutaways. And we cut away to Aria's imagination repeatedly, because she's imagining or making assumptions or more judgments or escaping. She's all about escapism. So she doesn't want to deal with what's going on at the moment. So she goes over here, and we see these funny or ironic snapshots of what's going on in her head. And so, it's just fun, and it's light, it's campy, it's madcap. And
it's a musical.
So it's got 6 original songs in it that Story was developing, and we would look at a passage, a whole scene, and be like, this would be a lot funnier or more interesting if we just exclude this scene, but this scene is actually a song. So how do we write this into a musical sequence? So, and it's not a traditional musical structure. It's not Rodgers and Hammerstein. It's not something like that. It's a little more Disney-esque in its structure probably, but even still, it's not even quite that. It's just, I tell people it's a very musical movie. And so if you watch it and they break, somebody steps off into their imagination and breaks out into song, it's probably not happening in reality. It's probably happening in this character's imagination. But then there's caveats to that in the movie, where the Battlefield family, who's one of our main families, they really do sing and perform. And so does Aria. She's in a school musical. So there are actual songs happening in reality in the story. And then there's stuff happening that's musical that's not happening in reality. So you just got to watch it and see if you can follow along. See if you can keep up, everybody. See if you can keep up.
Where can we watch it? Like, where is it available?
Yeah. Go to Prime Video and search Aria Appleton Shines. And you can rent or buy it.
It's available currently there only, and it may only ever be there. We are in negotiations with a distributor. We've turned down 5 distributors because distribution offers to us were so untenable. That's all I'll say. They were untenable. Okay, some of them were criminal. I will say that. Some of those offers were criminal. We have turned down several in order to maintain some integrity in the situation and be able to not give away something, because that's ultimately what distribution contracts look like. You give away the IP for 5 or 10 years in worst case scenarios, and it's not yours anymore, really. It's theirs, and they get to do whatever they want to with it. We feel like we're stewarding a mission as much as we're stewarding anything, and so we're being very just careful about who we might partner with in that regard. We are intentional, and we are in negotiation right now with a particular faith-based distributor.
I know who.
You do?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
is it PureFlix?
that is wrong. It is not PureFlix.
It would be great on PureFlix, wouldn't it?
It would be.
I agree. Maybe I just hinted a little bit.
Well, but this distributor,
PureFlix,
could. They could get it to PureFlix. They'll probably shop it to PureFlix. You could be speaking. You could be prophesying.
Maybe you're
now.
prophesying what's about to happen.
In the name of Jesus, I think I am.
So we wouldn't mind it being there. But we're being pretty careful about where it goes and who we partner up with. Don't be yoked with unbelievers. Don't be unequally yoked. There's some principles that are biblical that we feel like apply to business, that we feel like most definitely apply to the mission and the stewardship of what we're doing with our company and with the products that we make. So we're being very, very careful about that, and making sure that even if the people that we're dealing with claim to be believers, that the business in which they conduct things is done with high integrity. And that's unfortunately hard to find.
Yeah, it is. Even for guests, like I have to, and they'll slip in there. I don't know if you guys knew this, but like I'm very disclaiming of my Christian podcast. Like very like I am a Christian podcast. Like please only send me like guest of my moral belief. I'm not going to go and minimize it or go against it to all these agencies. And I've had to turn down a lot of people that you would normally not turn down. But my faith, it has to stay, it has to connect to faith. This is God's podcast. But there have been some that slip in there. And one was yesterday. He's from Russia. Okay. And they told me, like, yeah, he's excited. Like, he would love to talk about the faith aspect. And it was just like, F this, F that. And I'm like, well,
That's
I mean,
funny.
I know how to
That's
deal with it,
interesting.
you
That's
know, but and
just the
sometimes,
Russians for you.
yes, and that's the thing. It's culturally so different. And so I don't think when he was excited to him, I think that it just wasn't hitting. And so I'm like, I'm praying about this because I've also had interviews where they did slip in and they're like, I'm Christian and they're not. They're new age and they're spiritual and like, I love the brain. I love science. I love, I'm a realist. Okay. But I'm like, there's some I'm like, I can't publish your episode where it went. I can't do it. Like, it goes against everything that I stand for. And so I do believe in business and in anything, any brand deals that we team up with, we have to stand out. We have to be away from the world, right? Be in the world, but not of the world. And I challenge everyone who is a Christian in these industries to stand up for truth because God is a way maker and he's a miracle worker and he's a promise keeper and he doesn't need your help or your compromise for his calling to be done in your life. Okay. Okay, just like this movie. So I'm so grateful that you guys came on. We're on the hour, and that you shared this remarkable movie with us that's going to impact so many generations to come. I can't wait to watch it with my daughter. I can already see myself filming, getting a bowl of popcorn, and like us watching this movie together with my kids so you guys can see the reaction from 16, 13,
Yes.
9, and 6.
We would love
Boy
that.
and girl. So
We'd love that.
it's gonna be our movie night. Instead of a scary movie tomorrow, we're gonna watch this movie tomorrow for Halloween. And I'm really excited because we always do a movie, but I don't like to bring scary movies into my house, even though I was terrible when I was young. Anyways, where can everybody connect with you guys? Like, where can they share their testimony when they watch this movie, or they want to get in touch with you, or they want to know more about homeschooling? Or, Nathan, you love to talk about this industry and the business aspect, and maybe there are listeners out there that want to know more. I mean, I want to be an actress. It's my dream.
Great.
I know I'm called to
Yeah.
be it. I just think
There you
this
go.
is the platform for it right now.
Yeah.
Anyone can go to ariaappleton.com, ARIA, and then Apple, TON.com. And that has all the links out. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn,
Blue Sky.
which is really random to us, but
And
we're on
we
there.
are at Grafted, like GRA Grafted in, right? We're at Grafted Studios on YouTube. And so that is the Aria Appleton page. And so, yeah, at Grafted Studios on YouTube. And then we do have a Give Send Go. That's GiveSendGo/Aria Appleton. If you would like to get a copy of our Parents and Leaders Guide, which accompanies the film. And that is, it's not technically free, but if you want to give us a penny at Give Send Go, we'll just donate any amount and we'll send you a copy of the Parents and Leaders Guide, which is a great conversation starter for parents that are homeschooling or a youth leader, or just a parent who doesn't get it, like a parent who watches and I don't understand how this is spiritual, or they look at it and they're not sure how to connect it to scripture or connect it to some spiritual concepts. Then the Leader's Guide helps
Or
do
the
that.
people that are conspiracy theorists into religion and are very fear driven and then calling it faith and then projecting that onto other people. You can also donate and give and tithe to these
you
beautiful
talking
people.
about?
I know.
Yeah. It sounds very specific.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I'm at Nathan D. Myers everywhere. So at NathanDMyers.com and on Instagram and Facebook. And then Delitha is at Delitha Myers on Instagram.
Great. I'm glad you knew that.
You are. I Insta you all the time. And But you're welcome to connect with us and communicate with us personally. I get back to people on the regular via Instagram or Facebook. And then if you get on nathandmyers.com, that is my link tree out to, if you want to email me or anything like that. But if you Google Nathan D as in Daniel, Nathan D. Myers, you Google that. There's way more on the internet than I wish there was. And
I
there's a
feel
lot
that
out
with
there.
my soul. Just
Yeah.
put Ashley Henriott. I went through a separation and it was all about divorce. What's her husband look like? Who's her husband? People didn't believe me, and then they did it. And I'm like, yeah, but now it's better. Now Google's better. It's a bit more positive. You guys, thank you so much for coming on. And if this episode inspired you, if you're going to go watch the movie, let them know. Tag them on social media, donate, share, continue to make movies that impact our younger generation in a very relevant way. Don't be afraid of culture, okay? Don't be afraid to cancel. Confrontation is healthy. And so let's get in culture and let's shine a light for Christ, okay? That takes confidence. And that's what we're about here. And so make sure you subscribe, leave a rating review. I love to read them. I love to hear how this inspired you guys. And I will see you next Tuesday on Confidence and Coffee.
If you loved that episode of Confidence and Coffee, stop right now. Go leave a rating, a review. Tell me how this podcast episode inspired you. How did this inspire maybe a friend that you know? I would love to hear your testimony. Maybe screenshot, tag me in it on social media, wherever you are, so I can celebrate and share it with you. These ratings, these reviews, your subscriptions to the podcast on YouTube and anywhere you listen is so helpful to get this community growing, to get this message out. It takes you 2 seconds to make such a huge impact, so don't forget to do that. And I will see you next Tuesday on Confidence and Coffee.